gonna be on my phone. I've got the questions here though. I'm gonna start, inshallah.
We started.
We've started. So okay.
Okay, Psycho Brothers. We're just gonna wait till see if anybody joins us. You want to put your phone on silent as well. So just give it a minute or so just to wait, just so that inshallah the brothers are aware. Today's session we're going to be talking about various questions, points, angles with regards to belief in the Creator, belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and also belief in the Quran. And I have brother
Mustahsin.
I always say Muhtasin. Mustahsin.
Yeah.
Wahaj is always correcting me on that one. So we got brother Mustahsin, who, alhamdulillah, I've met, how long now? 7-8 months?
Maybe over 2 years now.
On Facebook, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
But
we met, remember, last year, 2 years on Mum's Road.
Did we?
Went to eat. Remember?
Yeah, that was just earlier this year.
No, it must be 2 years ago.
No, it wasn't 2 years ago.
Like 1.5 years.
It wasn't even 1.5 years. It was only this year that I met you.
Nah, I don't think. I think it's been over.
No, it's
okay.
not.
So yeah.
So Mustahsin, he invited me also to Manchester Metropolitan to give a talk, isn't it?
Yeah.
So it was Islamic Awareness Week. How was the Islamic Awareness Week?
Alhamdulillah, it was great. It was very good.
Yeah. That's good. Was there a lot of people that came? I know when I came there was about, fair few.
We had a couple of hundred people.
Throughout the week.
Events. And yeah, so on your obviously Tuesday video, brother Kalim, he should be uploading the video. He's been saying it, but he's not.
Oh right,
so
okay.
I'm still catching you up on that, inshallah.
Alhamdulillah.
So, yeah. Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah, brother Wajid. How are you?
So I just want to make sure that everybody can hear us. Okay, so if brothers could respond whether you can hear us, inshallah.
But people are writing.
So I've got it on my phone. Don't worry.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, so we got a few brothers.
So how many? Right.
So
is brother Abu Muhammad on?
Abu Muhammad Ali is not on yet.
Oh.
No. So we might have to text him.
Let me just text him.
Yeah. So if, is everybody okay? They can listen. They can hear. Sound is good. Oh, excellent. Well, that's because I actually went and bought a mic. So hopefully, inshallah, we can hear properly. And we don't have to shout too much. Okay, we might as well start then, Mustahsin.
To be honest, I've not really thought of any questions on mine. But we can start off, inshallah, about the traditional rational arguments for Allah's existence. And just, for example, the most common argument that you use is the contingency argument. So perhaps you'd like to explain what is the contingency argument, and what are the different forms of the contingency argument. And inshallah we can speak about the objections to the contingency argument as well, inshallah, after,
So what it is obviously there are various arguments for the belief in the Creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And what I tend to do is I tend to not get bogged down in terms of using the particular terminology like contingency or the argument from design or the first cause. I give my own particular argument or discussion that I learned and I believe is pretty solid. And where we talk about things that are limited and that they're also dependent.
Wait, can you just define what you mean by limited and dependent?
Okay, so limited basically can refer to something which has certain attributes, and these attributes are quantifiable, so you can know specifically. So, for example, obviously the mobile phone has a certain size to it, certain shape, certain weight, it has limitations. It can't do everything. It can only do certain things. Yeah. So obviously the phone itself has limitations, and everything that we observe within the reality will have a particular type of limitation or attribute which is quantifiable that you can add to. Yeah, you can quantify it in terms of a number or value, etc. So this is what we mean by limited. Now the contingency argument, which is a popular argument and one of the classical arguments that the Muslim scholars of the past used, was basically an argument that was used for the belief or the idea, which is that matter or things within the universe, they're either going to be two things. They're either going to be possible beings or they're going to be necessary beings.
Right, what do you mean by possible beings?
Okay.
Necessary beings? We need to define the term.
No, it's good, it's good, yeah. So definitely, so when we say possible beings, what we're saying is that the thing that exists, firstly, may not have existed.
Right.
Yeah. So, like for example, my mobile phone is a possible being. It's something that could possibly not exist.
Okay.
Yeah. And at some point in a period of time, it did not exist until somebody made it. So we call it a possible being. Also, the second definition of a possible being is that something that has attributes or limitations which could have been different. Yeah.
Right.
So it didn't have to have those attributes. So my mobile phone could have been bigger or could have been smaller. Yeah. So we call this a possible being. Now, because my mobile phone could have been bigger or could have been smaller, then there needs to be something external to the mobile phone to determine why it's that particular shape and not another particular shape. Just like my mobile phone could have existed, could not have existed, then I need something external to the mobile phone to make it exist. Yeah?
Right, okay.
And this is what the classical argument of contingency is referring to, that everything that we see around us are possible beings. They may, we can conceive that they could not have existed. Yeah?
Right, okay.
But the fact that they do exist indicates something has pushed it over the edge from non-existence into existence. Yeah?
Right, okay. So are you saying basically things need an explanation as to why they exist?
That's part of it.
So none of the principle of sufficient reason. That's more like a Western type of argument. I don't know which philosopher came up with that.
Yeah, so they call it PSR,
So is that what the argument is?
It's part of that, but it's also natural as human beings that when we see something, we naturally ask the question, why did that thing exist? Yeah, like for example, if I see a ball, going past, and I've not seen the point of origin of that ball, that tennis ball or cricket ball that's going past my head, then I know automatically, because the way the rational mind works is it automatically knows that this is possible movement. It's not necessary. It doesn't have to be in that position. So if it's only possible, you naturally quickly come to the conclusion that somebody's thrown it, hit it, somebody's caused it to move.
Which is based on your experience.
But it's more than just experience. Even though I've not seen that particular cricket ball fly past my head, that's the first time, I will naturally ask that question. What's the reason behind, its movement when it doesn't have to be moving?
Right, okay, I understand,
And we do that throughout the whole of science, the whole of rationality, where we look at these questions about possible beings, and things that doesn't have to always exist or doesn't have to exist in the way that they do. We naturally ask the question, what's caused it? Yeah, what's caused it to be that particular way, to bring it into existence?
Right.
Yeah?
So you're saying because it's intuitive that we naturally find explanations as to why things exist, therefore it must have an explanation. Does that logically follow? It's not even
the fact that it's intuitive.
Right.
It's part of the rational process of thought. Yeah. If you take that if you take the component of, looking for reasons behind the existence of possible beings, then your whole ability to make rational judgments falls down.
Why is that?
So I'll give you an example. Maybe give you an example through science. Yeah. So recently they discovered that stars rotate around galaxies. Yeah, orbit around a central point. That central point they talk about is a supermassive black hole. Yeah, and according to the rules of gravity, the natural law of gravity, those that are orbiting closer to the center should be orbiting faster.
Right.
Yeah, and those that are orbiting towards the edges of the galaxy should be orbiting slower. Yeah. So if they're orbiting too fast, they'll break the orbit. Yeah, and just got if you've got a ball on a string, and if you're doing it too fast, and the string's going to break, and it's going to fly away.
Right. Okay.
So what they found though is that the stars on the edges of galaxies are traveling just as fast, or faster than they expect, than the stars that are orbiting around the center of the galaxies. They said that breaks the laws of gravity. Yeah.
Right.
Now, how do they look at this? Do they say, or how do we generally look at it? Do we turn around and say, it just happens? Yeah. We're not going to provide any explanation. Yeah. It just happens. And if we say it just happens, then that opens up the question that any possible thing could happen. Like, for example, in this room, suddenly an elephant could come into it. Yeah.
Yes.
because we break the principle of sufficient reason. What's causing these things? Yeah. So breaking rational
So
thought.
you're saying causation and reason, what principle of sufficient reason and causation, is that separate or is that the same?
No, they're similar, isn't it? They're similar in
Right,
terms of
okay.
explanations
Okay.
in the way we're talking about it anyway today.
Hmm.
So what they found was this explanation about why do stars around the edges of galaxies rotate faster than they expect. They said, well, we're not going to change the laws of gravity because we believe the laws of gravity generally hold true. So there must be something that's causing gravity. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So there is something else, and that thing we can't see directly. So they call this dark matter. Yeah.
Right.
So the existence of dark matter is inferred through the rotations of stars around galaxies. They're saying there's something that's causing this gravitational force to allow stars to orbit the speed that they are without breaking away from the galaxies. Yeah.
Right.
So they're looking for an explanation,
Okay.
and here the explanation becomes dark matter.
Okay. Right.
Yeah. So that's why and again, if you break it down, why are they looking for an explanation? Because they know it's a possible being, isn't it?
Yes.
Stars don't have to be like that.
Mm.
Yeah, and in fact, it breaks what they're normally like in terms of the speed of orbit around galaxies. So that's why they're always looking for an explanation.
Okay.
Yeah. Now the question then becomes: can we continue asking an explanation where it only goes back to another limited, finite, dependent being or possible being? Yeah. So can we say, okay, or the phone depends upon another possible being, which depends upon another possible being, depends upon another possible being, and we keep asking the question, the other explanation, and obviously we say that's an infinite regress, and an infinite regress is impossible.
Is that true though?
So yeah, we say it's true. We say it's true for a number of reasons. Yeah.
Right.
Firstly, it means that we have to if we talk about infinite regress and say infinite regress is true, it means that we're agreeing that an actual infinite, a countable infinite, or a quantifiable infinite can exist, and we can explain that later on. The second argument of why an infinite regress is impossible is the fact that in order for a series to come into existence, there needs to be initiation.
Yes.
Yeah. So, for example, as a very brief example, for us to sit here and do this Facebook Live video, there needs to be a number of events that led to this. Now, if there wasn't a beginning event, we would not be in this position sitting and talking about this. Yeah. Another example on that infinite regress is, and it's a famous one that I've given many times, is the soldier on the battlefield. Have you heard that one?
No.
Have you not heard that one?
No.
I'm sure I gave that at the talk.
I don't remember.
Okay, anyway. I'll give it anyway. Yeah. I'll give it. So the soldier on the battlefield is that the soldier, he's an obedient soldier. He seeks orders before he shoots. Yeah. So he turns to his corporal.
Yes, you've good.
You're good. I'm starting, so I'll finish that.
That's it.
So he turns to the corporal. He says to the corporal, "Do I have the orders to shoot?" The corporal says, "Wait, don't shoot." And he goes to the lieutenant, and he asks for the orders to give to the soldier to shoot. And the lieutenant turns around and says, "Wait, let me get the orders from the captain." The captain says, "Wait, let me go to the 1-star general." The 1-star general says, "Wait, let me go to the 2-star general." Yeah,
and so on.
So that's right.
Shoot. Yeah.
Exactly.
No,
he wouldn't. Yeah. So he wouldn't. So therefore, an infinite regress of possible beings depending upon other possible beings, depending upon other possible beings, going back forever, would mean that nothing would exist.
Okay.
And that's why we say there must be, if an infinite regress, infinite series is impossible, then there must be a necessary being. Yeah.
Right. Well, what about an infinite regress depending on a necessary being? What would you say about that?
Yeah, we can still say that the whole series needs an explanation. Yeah. So if people say, you can have an infinite regress, an infinite series, you still need an explanation as to why a particular thing has the behaviour that it has. Why the series behaves the way it does. It's because it's a composite. They're all in a relationship. So what's causing that relationship? That still needs an explanation from outside of the series.
Like Don Page, I think that's his name, he's a physicist. He gives an example of a circle. So there's no point, but it still has to depend on something external.
That's right, yeah.
So it could be infinite in the sense that there's no points, but it still has to depend on something external.
Yeah, and there's one example I give is like the water cycle. Remember the water cycle?
Yeah, I remember. Yeah.
So the water cycle is a good example. Water cycle basically says that the rain causes the water evaporates to cause clouds cause rain, and you have this cycle. But when you go back in the cycle, firstly you have to explain what's caused that relationship, between that water cycle. And the second thing is when you go back in that relationship, where did the rain come from? They say the clouds, or where did the clouds come from? The water, or where did the water come from? The rain. But it's not rained yet. It's waiting for the clouds. So you still need something external to that cycle, cyclical dependency.
I think the analogy you was giving was was about the Big Crunch.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Like that. Or the oscillating model, how it was.
Yeah, the universe oscillating model. So
should we take some questions, inshallah?
From
actually, I have some questions. So let me see.
By the way, obviously, if anybody online who's watching this wants to ask any questions,
I do need to drink some water. I got a bad. But let's ask another question before we take the questions, inshallah.
Just really quickly, somebody's asked, Mustafa Saeed, he's asked, is this the argument of contingency? So he explained briefly, argument of contingency is that there are possible beings, meaning there are things that exist that don't have to exist, and that they don't have to exist in the way that they do. Like my mobile phone at one time did not exist and then came into existence. And it could be bigger or shorter than it is. So the reason why it exists the way it does means that something external to it needs to give it as an explanation of why it does this. I'll give you another example actually, which I always give this example, which is the example of a red triangle. Yeah?
Yeah, I think I've heard this.
So if you have a red triangle, by necessity it has to have three sides. Yeah, because triangles have three sides. Right, yeah? But the fact that it's red as opposed to blue, green, black, or any other colour requires an explanation.
Yes.
Yeah? Because that's a possible being. Now, a lot of atheists, or some atheists now, what they try to do is they argue from brute fact. Yeah, so they just say, oh, the universe is the way it is. Just is. Yeah? So that's like saying the red triangle just is red. Yeah? But it doesn't provide an explanation. And as soon as you start going to brute facts, you break the principle of requiring an explanation behind things. And if you break that principle, then the whole of science and rational thought starts to break down as well.
Right.
Because we can never trust that things could not just be the way it is. Yeah, an elephant could not just appear in this room. Yeah, a unicorn or spaghetti monster, whatever they want to use, could not just exist. Yeah, as soon as they provide that, then the whole of science breaks down.
Right. Okay, I got another question for you. So we're saying this necessary being.
Yeah.
Why can't it be energy, matter, or something non-physical, like a force?
Right.
Why does it have to be the traditional concept of God, as like we say? So why can't it be any of that?
Good question.
Space, Saturn, whatever it might be.
There's a few ways to answer this question. The first thing is, okay, what do we mean by maybe a necessary being, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah. So we're saying that if things are limited, they have a beginning, there could be something else, they're quantifiable, they have attributes which are quantifiable as well, then a necessary being cannot be something that requires an explanation other than its own existence.
Right,
yeah?
Okay.
So the fact is that it like a triangle is three sides, yeah? We say by necessity it has to be three sides, by its own existence, yeah? As a shape. Otherwise, it wouldn't be considered a triangle. Yeah, you can't have a four-sided triangle. So it has to be therefore unlimited. Yeah, meaning it doesn't have quantifiable attributes. Yeah, it is therefore independent, self-sufficient. Doesn't require anything else to bring it into existence because it's always existed. It's a necessary being. Yeah, it's always existence. Its existence is necessary. It must be, because we're saying it's unlimited, then it's not going to be defined by anything. Now, if you start talking about laws of nature being the necessary being, then you're basically talking about things which, one, have specific attributes, and therefore, if they have specific attributes, you're still going to ask the question, what caused it? So it has to be something that's not...
What do you mean specific attributes such as...
So, like energy, isn't it? Energy follows the equation E equals mc squared. Yeah, energy equals mass times the speed of light squared. Yeah, that's what energy. Energy follows that rules. Any of the laws of nature, they all follow rules, isn't it? The observable rules, yeah, or they're inductively determined by our observations. These laws, what we term, but they follow certain rules, so they're naturally going to be called possible beings. So the creator has to be something that's free from any limitations and quantifiable attributes. Yeah. So as a result, if you start saying it's a mechanical force or if it's something else, you're really talking about a possible being. You're not talking about a necessary being. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So we've said that it has to be a necessary being, existence, a being who's always existed. Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, whose nature is not comprehensible by the human mind because we can only comprehend things that are limited. The Allah Subhanahu wa Taala is beyond our comprehension. Therefore, the creator cannot be somebody who depends upon anything else. Has to be free to make choices. Yeah. As soon as it's compelled to do something, it's now compelled by a particular attribute or nature.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, that's forcing it. That's one argument for that.
Right. And in terms of let's say a triangle has obviously 3 sides.
Yeah.
So obviously that's necessary. So you wouldn't say why doesn't it have 4?
Yeah.
But then that doesn't. It still has to have it. Obviously Allah has to make it that way though. So it would be possible, right?
Yeah, I think what it is that that's an interesting question, yeah, because when we talk about logical things, things which are, like for example, you can't have a squared circle, and people naturally ask the question, well, if Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala exists and can do anything, can Allah Subhanahu wa Ta'ala create a squared circle, or a triangle that's more than 3 sides, or anything like this? They ask these types of questions, and these questions are, they're actually nonsensical questions, and they're looking at it from the wrong way, because they're trying to impose our definitions based upon our limited understanding and experience upon the creator. Yeah. So when we talk about triangle, we're talking about how we comprehend what a triangle is.
Right.
Yeah. So we comprehend a triangle being a particular thing. Yeah. So if then the triangle is defined as 3 sides, and then suddenly it's no longer 3 sides, we're going to give it a new term. From our perspective.
Right, okay, yes.
Yeah?
Yes.
So the wording itself, squared circle, we might be able to understand the sentence, but once you try to apply it to a reality and from our understanding, it doesn't make any sense.
Right.
Yeah, I'll give you another example of this. It's like the famous liar's paradox, where the liar says, I always tell a lie. Yeah. So the liar is always saying to tell a lie, but then if he's always telling a lie, does that make it a truth? Yeah. So, and if he doesn't always tell a lie, then is it true, or etc. Yeah. So, or is it a lie? So the problem with liar's paradox is that I can understand the sentence, but as soon as I try to apply it to a reality, it breaks down.
Right.
And it breaks down because of our human language. It breaks down the definitions that we've made upon certain things. Yeah. So therefore, the question itself is nonsensical. It's not grammatic. It may be grammatically correct, but it's not rhetorically. It doesn't have any rhetorical or epistemological import in terms of its meaning. It doesn't have any meaning to it.
Right.
Yeah, that's the ultimate thing. It's not a meaningful word that I can say when I talk about a square triangle or a squared circle.
Right.
Yeah. That was just, by the way, that was the first argument in terms of why the necessary being can't be a mechanical force. There's also another argument, and this is an argument that Imam Ghazali presents, and he explains that the universe and everything that exists within it are temporal. Yeah, temporal meaning that they began to exist. Yeah, and he explained that in 2 ways, or he explained it by referencing the orbits of the planets. Yeah. You read this?
Yeah, I've heard this. Yeah.
So he talks about the orbit of the Earth takes place at certain, obviously 365.25 days, and the orbit of Saturn is longer because it's got a bigger distance to make. So what he said if the universe has always existed, and obviously from that perspective they thought the solar system always existed, then as a result there would be more infinities of the orbit of the Earth and lesser infinities of the orbit of Saturn. So he said, so he said you can't have this type of idea of greater and lesser infinities, on a practical level. So this is why there's one argument. There's lots of other arguments as well. Like for example, infinite regress requires.
Was there any response made to Imam Ghazali on that point that he made? Because I'm sure I heard something.
There might have been, but I don't know. I think what it was that those other philosophers like Ibn Sina, Ibn Rushd, their argument was that God creates by necessity, yeah, and if God is eternal, then the creation would be eternal. Right. Yeah, so they're not looking at it from the point of view of the universe. They're looking at it from the nature of God and saying God is unchangeable. Right, yeah. Okay. Whereas what Imam Ghazali said, he said, we look from the universe is what we can sense and comprehend. Then we come to the conclusion the universe began. Now, if the universe began, but the cause is eternal, yeah, then the cause must have chose to create. Right. Yeah. Now, sometimes people find this a bit weird in terms of trying to understand that. But the point being is this: is that let's say you've got a bowling ball on a cushion. Yeah. Yeah. Now the bowling ball is eternal, and the cushion is eternal, and the bowling ball rests up on the cushion. The effect of the indentation would be eternal. Yes. Yeah. So the bowling ball is causing the cushion to indent. Yeah. Eternally. Yeah, eternally, because the cause is eternal. Therefore, the indentation, i.e., the effect, would be eternal. Yeah. It's like, for example, if I switch on the light, I'm going to get light. Yeah. If the sun rises, it's going to cause light. Yeah. So as soon as the sun rises, there's going to be light. So when you have no choice over something, yeah, and you have the cause, then the effect is always going to be there. Yeah. So if I've got heat under water, yeah, the heat's not choosing to cause the water to boil. So as soon as I put heat under water, it's going to the water's going to start boiling. So there's no choice. It's just necessary. If the fire and the heat is eternal and the water is eternal in this example, obviously that's not the case, but if it was, then the boiling would be eternal. Right. Yeah. Obviously it would boil off and become all gas. Yeah. So what Imam Ghazali said, he said, well, the universe is temporal, but the cause is eternal. So therefore, the creator must have chosen to create by will. Okay. Yes. Yeah. So this is what the creator did. He chose to create. So therefore, the creator is not a mechanical force, but rather a what they term a personal being.
Does that what do you say? Is that because it came into existence at one point in time or not?
The universe, yeah. Universe. So the universe would be eternal otherwise, wouldn't it? Okay. There wouldn't be a point where you could say the universe began. Yeah. Something, the effects of the universe would be eternal. So these are the two arguments. One argument is to say that the creator is a unlimited, independent being, yeah, and therefore to start to talk about mechanical forces is placing limitations. And if you're placing limitations, then you're effectively saying the creator is dependent. Right. Yeah. Whereas Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that determines the existence of the universe. Yeah. Right. Determines the values that it has. So that determinant must have chosen to do that. And then the second argument is that because the effect is temporal, i.e. the universe began to exist, but the cause is eternal, i.e. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has always existed, then that means that there must have been a decision, i.e. a will to choose to create. Right. Yeah.
But that's not based on the argument from contingency, where you're deriving that Allah has that free choice to create. That's based on the argument of that the universe had to come into existence.
Yeah, so Imam Ghazali, like I said, and when he was answering this point, because some of the Muslim philosophers in the past, they believed that the universe was eternal. Yeah, then he was answering that point. And they're saying the universe is eternal because their conception of the creator is not effectively wasn't a personal being. Yeah, it wasn't a being that chose.
It's more like Aristotle's type of concept.
Yeah, it was a very philosophical idea of the nature of the creator, which was just this force basically. Right. Yeah, and
so what I was asking here though is that the fact that Allah obviously chooses to create, that attribute of Allah obviously choosing to create is derived from the argument. It's not derived from the contingency argument, right? It's derived from the argument that the universe had to come into existence.
But even when you talk about contingency, though, you are talking about possible beings that have an existence or don't have an existence. So there is a point of time where they don't exist and a point of time that they do exist. Okay. So there is what they term as murajjih, determinant. what determines it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's still temporality in the effects that we observe. Even if we just look at the phone or any other law of nature, etc., it's still temporal.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
So shall we, inshallah, start taking some questions?
If there's any questions, that is. Otherwise, it's just me and you.
Yeah, let's see. Abu Muhammad, I'm just waiting for him to ask some questions.
He's asked one.
Has he? Let's see, let me see. I can't really ask it. I don't mind. I don't have any.
Oh, right, okay then. So he's asked that question. How do you know the necessary being is God?
I think we've already answered that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think so. Basically, either the necessary being is going to be personal, apersonal, yeah, meaning, or non-personal,
Or something.
yeah. And obviously we said that it has to be a being that chooses to create. Can God cause infinite possible beings to exist from eternity? Eternity past.
Yeah, we answered that as well, didn't we? Like,
Yeah, I think what we said is that, look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, I mean, this type of question I think is more of a philosophical type question about the nature of the creator and about what the creator does. And I think we've got to be a bit careful, because sometimes what we tend to do is we tend to think about, from the point of view of the creator, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and what can or cannot be done then. And we can't understand that. It's beyond our comprehension. This is, this is one of the essences of belief in Islam, belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, which is that although we come to know the existence of the creator, we can't comprehend how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists. Yeah? So we are told within the Quran about the names of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, about what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us, and that's it. We leave it as that. Going beyond that is trying to comprehend something that's beyond our mental faculties, and we can't do that because we think of everything from the point of view of things which are finite and limited and dependent, i.e. possible beings. So to try to comprehend the nature of a necessary being is impossible for us. And the second thing is that when we look at this question about belief in the creator, we're really looking at it from our perspective, i.e. from the limited universe, i.e. what we can sense. So what we sense and what we understand is what we then come to the conclusion with regards to the creator. So we go from what we look at and what we sense to the creator, not the creator and then try to explain creation.
Right. Okay.
Does that make sense?
Some like, for example, Muhammad Zailan, he chooses that approach that you start off with the creator first.
I don't think he uses it. Does he use it as proof? I don't know.
I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, I know. Look, as an example of that is that problem of evil argument, isn't it? If God is all good and all powerful, then why does evil exist in the world?
Right.
Yeah, but it's coming from the point of view of the creator,
right,
and trying to understand the nature of creation. Yeah, whereas we can't understand the nature of the creator. Rather, we come from the point of view of the creation, and from that come to certain conclusions about the need and necessity of a creator.
Right. Okay, I have another question.
Yeah.
I think let me just take one more question from me, inshallah. So these rational arguments that you have been presenting, do you think, in reality, they give you certainty, as they're based on obviously inference, and inference, of course, is like, what is the best explanation? Okay, although it might be the best explanation, but normally there's always that, let's say, element of possibility where it might be another explanation. It might not be the case.
I wouldn't call it inference.
All right, okay.
I would say, look, you have two possibilities, or you have maybe 4 possibilities. Let's say the effects or the universe came from nothing, that there's an infinite regress, that there's a cycle of dependencies, oscillating universe from Big Bang to Big Crunch, or that there is a unlimited independent creator who chose to create. Those are the only 4 possibilities. Right. Even if they talk about aliens that have created the universe, well, they're still possible beings, isn't it? Still require an explanation. So those are the only possible things. So if we say, okay, universe from nothing is absurd, it doesn't make any sense, and it breaks all the rules of rational and scientific thought together. As soon as you do that, I think there was one atheist. He turned around and he said, "Grant me one miracle, and I'll explain the rest." Meaning, grant me the ability to say the universe just popped into existence, and I'll explain the rest of it. Yeah. Right. So it's an absurd thing. It's so I don't want to go into too much of that, but it's just nonsense. Infinite regress, we just said it's impossible. Cyclical dependencies, we said that doesn't explain. So it only leaves one possible
Right. Okay.
explanation.
Interesting.
Unless people can think of a
Another
fifth or sixth, but there is no fifth or sixth. And even I watched that recently, the debate between Ed Fesser and Graham Oppie. Did you see it? Did you not hear that debate?
No, but he debated that other guy from Cambridge.
What's that? Who, Ed Fesser or Graham Oppie?
No, I think he's a Bengali.
Oh, he's a new atheist.
Yeah, he's an atheist.
Yeah,
from Cambridge.
Yeah. Ahmed Arif.
That's it.
Yeah, I've not seen that one. How was that one?
No, I've not watched that yet.
Oh,
but
right.
Yeah, I also had a debate with him.
So anyway, Graham Oppie, I don't know. I think that guy's Ahmed Arif. I wouldn't rate him anyway. But Graham Oppie is somebody is well known, in philosophy, well known atheist. And it was an interesting discussion. It's interesting actually to watch it, and sometimes people like, oh my God, he's a professor in philosophy, atheist. This guy's going to come out with some, crazy points, And once you get past the terminology that these guys use, you realise it breaks down just to a very simple point. And what he was basically arguing is that could there not be something that's discovered that is a brute fact? Yeah, that just exists. Yeah? And this is what he's arguing. So basically he's saying, could there not be a necessary being, which is physical? Yeah. Right. And Ed Fesser, he wrote the book is it 5 Ways?
5 Proofs for God.
Yeah. So it's based upon Aquinas' 5 Ways.
No, it's actually not. Yeah,
is it not?
It's not. It's a different type.
I think he mentioned some of the books.
Yeah, some of Aquinas' but it's not all.
Okay, that's fine. He's changed a few of the arguments, isn't it?
Yeah.
So anyway, Ed Fesser basically believes in God. Is he Christian, by the way?
Yeah, he's Christian.
Oh, is it? Okay then. So anyway, he believed, and his point was that no, you need a necessary being who is supernatural, i.e. not physical. That's the basic argument. Yeah. And he's trying to say to the person, you need an explanation to say why do those physical things exist the way that they do. Yeah. Right, okay. Why do they exist in space? Yeah. Or time.
But then what about something non-physical? Would you apply the same?
But if it's
Allah is non-physical, but there might be other things out there that's non-physical as well.
So if that X, which we're saying is non-physical, means beyond the universe then. Yeah. So the X is either potentially discoverable, or potentially undiscoverable, if you understand what I mean. Well, I'll explain. So there might be something that exists within the universe or outside the universe that we don't know about. Yes. But if we improve, it could be that if we have better science, better technology, we could potentially discover it. Okay. Yeah. Or it could be the case that this unknown, we can never possibly discover it, no matter what technology we have. Yeah. In the future, or whatever it is.
And it's non-physical.
Yeah, it's non-physical. Okay. So you've got this X outside the universe. It's potentially discoverable. It's potentially undiscoverable. Now, if it's potentially discoverable, then it means that there must be some attribute that we're able to identify. Yeah, which is quantifiable as well. Yeah, something that we can sense. If it's that, then it becomes a possible being. Yeah, I requires an explanation. Why does it have those attributes as opposed to another attribute?
But so you're saying you can apply the same, regardless of whatever it is, you can always
ask that
question.
And if it's potentially non-discoverable, that you can never know what this X is, but we know that the X must exist, then effectively you're talking about the creator.
Right, okay.
And in fact, this is what Ed Fesser said in his point. He's trying to say they use this word simples, I think it was, these simple particles that just exist. It's a theoretical point that they're trying to argue. And what Ed Fesser was basically saying to Graham Oppie, who's the atheist, he was trying to say that actually what you're describing is a necessary being. Yeah. What the problem with atheists is, or the thing is that atheists reduces down to the point that they have to affirm some sort of theism.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
But then, let's say for example, the soul, right? Obviously, you're never able to discover the soul in a sense that you can't feel the soul. Yeah. So let's say you had an atheist that did believe, because there's certain atheists out there that do believe. Yeah. Like in the soul. Well, it's quite rare. But
maybe spiritual ones.
So, yeah. They could explain that as being,
We have to ask the question: how do we know that the soul exists? Yeah. And also, what do we mean by the soul? Yeah. So, that question of what is the definition of a soul, I don't think there is any definition of the soul. Yeah, because the problem is that how do we know the soul exists? Then we know the soul exists based upon scripture, based upon.
Let's
what
take this up.
Allah says.
Okay, if we get that example, let's say some aliens, but they were non-physical, so
Right.
you couldn't quantify them. So how would you explain that then?
Yeah,
Let's say there were just 2-3 aliens somewhere outside the universe.
So we're just saying that there's an
and it doesn't have a physics. It's not made up of
and
physical
it's
parts.
and it's eternal, and it's unlimited.
Okay, if it's unlimited, then it's not.
Yeah,
Okay, so
maybe.
okay, so it's always going to lead to one of the two.
Yeah,
If
yeah,
it's not, if
yeah,
it's
exactly.
limited, then
Yeah, that's
obviously,
right. That's right.
Right, so I like that. Yeah.
I think Ibn Yassin's asked the question. Have you got that one?
Let me see. Please answer mine. Yeah. Why does there only have to be one God and not two? So why can't there be, for example, two necessary beings?
Okay, so
That's a good
it's a good question. Yeah, there's a few answers again to this. The first answer is mentioned in the Quran, a particular ayat which talks about if there were more than one God. Paraphrasing, if there's more than one God, then there'll be calamity in the universe. The universe wouldn't be able to operate. Yeah, and this points to the idea that.
So say that verse again. If there
I
was
can't remember the
two-
specific verse,
I
but
know.
if there's two creators,
There'll be conflicting.
there'll be conflict.
But what about if they both agree?
No, but I will explain that.
Okay.
Yeah. So what do we mean by it? If you've got two necessary infinite beings that are able to make, have infinite power, infinite will, etc. If one wills one thing and the other one wills against it, then there will
Right.
be any impossibility for either of those wills to come into being. So actually what you find is that it's a paradox, it's a contradictory
Yeah.
statement. It's talking about two infinite beings. Yeah? So that's the first argument. The second argument is
So
saying...
you say, wait, so you're saying, so let's say, so the so-called two necessary beings, one decided to create the universe and one didn't. So the one that decided, that means his will has,
Yeah, and one decides
Right.
not to create it, doesn't want it to be created. Yeah, so
so
what
that means
happens?
one's more powerful than the other, and then that means that's.
Well, then
Is
that
that
would
what
be
you're
the...
trying to say?
No, I'm saying that if you've got one creator who's, unlimited, infinite, decides to create,
Right.
and one so-called creator who's unlimited, infinite, who decides not to create, who wants to destroy the universe, then what's the outcome? It's a paradox.
Yeah,
It's a contradiction.
because one. But no, but let's say, as I said, they both wills agree.
Okay, so that's the next question.
Yeah.
How, if all the wills agree, yeah? And I think Imam Ghazali mentions this in his book, Incoherence of the Philosophers. And what he explained, he said, look, Ed Fesser also mentioned this point as well, yeah, and I thought he's got this from Imam Ghazali, maybe other people have mentioned it as well. But he said, look, if they all, you have to individualize, beings, yeah? So you have to say, okay, why is this different to this? Like, for example, you've got two
Right.
odorless, colourless liquids, yeah? So if they're two odorless, colourless liquids, you've got to individualise whether one's different to the other. So you put under boiling point, you put heat under it. One boils at 100 degrees Celsius, the other one boils at 70 degrees Celsius. You say, okay, I'm going to say that this liquid is called water, and this liquid is called alcohol. Yeah, because you've individualised them, you differentiated them by the attributes.
Right, so you're saying if you can't distinguish between the two, there's just what is really one.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
If you just got one will, one unlimitedness, then effectively you're talking about one necessary being.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
And that stops us from falling into that logical contradiction of two independent creators who oppose each other. Yeah.
Right. Okay. So it's a contradiction.
Yeah. So Imam Ghazali mentions this point because effectively you're talking about the one because you can't individualise them.
Should see any other questions? Don't be detective asking too much questions, Abu Muhammad.
Oh, right. No, don't worry. You can ask as many questions,
Yeah.
don't worry, Justin and the brothers on Facebook.
See, it's not.
You recently had a mock debate, didn't you, by the way?
Abu Muhammad when he got destroyed.
So I just for the brothers who may not realise, we did a Skype debate.
Oh wait, brother Wajid has asked a question.
Is it? Well, let me explain it. So Abu Muhammad Ali, who's watching now, and he's also he does a lot of discussions as well. So he debated for the existence of the creator, and the brother here argued what the atheist position would have been against the existence of the creator, and so we had
Not
that.
more against, more about the responded to the fourth.
Yeah. So that's what you did.
Yeah,
You did that. So they had that. They had a what was it? Crossfire as well section as well. So obviously the brothers there are a bit competitive, in terms of who won and who didn't win. But go on, anyway. Sorry. What was the question?
Brother Wajid.
Yeah.
Brother Shadow got smashed. Question: so, if God can exercise His will freely and chooses to bring physicality into existence, isn't the choice open to infinite ways of formulating the physical, as the physical is a possible existence? Doesn't this equate God's will to being contingent on Himself, and in effect, meaning that an attribute of God is contingent on a distinctive attribute of God Himself? How do we apply the continuity argument in this scenario?
Right, I'm going to have to read that properly because I wasn't quite
what
sure.
He's saying.
Go on. If you explain it, go on.
If I'm so, if God has His will freely and chooses to bring His will, so he's saying basically the choice, because there's different ways to infinite ways of what creating.
Yeah. Okay. Infinite number of different attributes that the universe could have.
So doesn't that mean that God Himself? I think he's saying God's will to be is contingent, because God's will could have been different. I think is that what he's saying?
Maybe let's look at this.
Is that what you're saying, Brother Wajid?
Okay.
Sorry for the essay.
Let's look.
Well, let's see. I hope we got his question right.
Yeah.
He might not even mean that.
But let me rephrase the question,
Right.
isn't it? Is that okay? I remember one time I was in a debate, Sheffield Hallam University a few years back. Yeah, and the guy turned around and he had this point, which was, what caused the will of the creator to create? Yeah. So maybe it's similar to that point, which is, why did the creator create those particular attributes within the universe as opposed to other attributes? Yeah, what's caused that? Is there something caused it? So what I did is I picked up a pen and I threw it in the middle of the audience. Yeah? And I turned to him and I said, what caused me to do that? And he goes, I don't know. And I go, well, if you don't understand the intentions behind the acts of creation, how are you going to understand the intentions behind the acts of the creator?
Right, subhanAllah.
Yeah, it was a simple point.
Yeah.
So it's just, that was it.
Something there. Sometimes these things are like needed, simple.
Yeah, that's it. And what it is that we can never know why the universal laws are the way they are. Obviously, some people use the anthropic principle, which is the idea, which is the universe is a particular set of values and attributes that allows human life to exist. Yeah, and life generally to exist.
They use that against the fine tuning, don't they? Argument.
Who?
That's normally used as against the fine tuning.
No, it's used for, isn't it?
Really? Wait.
Anthropic principle. Why the universe has those particular values?
Right. Okay.
Because they seem to be designed for life.
Right. Okay.
So maybe that's, we don't know, isn't it? We can only say this is how the creator created the universe. Again, I think that's the point, which is that we have to look at it from our perspective rather than understanding the nature of the creator. And I think that's where a lot of confusion comes in, when we start to understand from the nature of the creator and start to ask the question, why did this occur? Why did that occur? Yeah, why did the will of the creator create this way and that not another way? We can't even understand how an infinite will or an unlimited will exists. Yeah, we don't understand what that means. Right. Imam Ghazali, his response was that the creator willed from eternity. Yeah. So that doesn't, we can't comprehend that. Yeah. Exactly. So we have to understand that there are limitations, and we have to point to where the indications of our rational, limited mind comes to. Yeah. And like I said, there's these 4 possibilities, and we've discounted 3 of them, and the only possibility would be the existence of the creator.
Right. So you got Brother Hatim is, do you have that debate, the one where you threw the pen at the audience?
You know what?
Oh wait, I got another question here.
Yeah.
Like Ibn Yasin.
Can I just quickly answer that one?
Sure.
There were so many debates I've done, and there is always a brother with a camcorder recording it, but there's never a brother who uploads it. So I think there's only like 2 or 3 maximum that have been uploaded.
Because the ID.
Is it?
Yeah.
Maybe, I don't know, but I think I've never come across anybody who's actually uploaded that particular debate or some of the other debates that's happened.
So here was a question: how best to break down the evolution theory, and what are the flaws within it, and does this explain the origin of the universe or only of man?
So, and does this explain the origin? So, look, I think the way I remember came across a brother who he had a bit of doubts with regards to Islam, So I sat down with him. Oh, he was a convert to Islam, and his point was about how the Quranic narrative on the creation of Adam alayhi salam conflicts with science in terms of how human beings evolved. And what I said to him, I said two things in regards to this. I said, firstly, is that if you're an atheist, if you only believe in naturalistic causes, that everything has to have a naturalist explanation, that's it. It's like being trapped in a room, yeah, and you've been trapped in that room for all of your life, and there's no doors, no doors, no windows, and you have to explain why there's tables and chairs there. And you're saying, I'm only going to explain the existence of tables and chairs by this room.
Right.
Yeah. Then you say, okay, well, the walls are made of wood, and the table is made of wood. Maybe the walls evolved into a table.
Right.
Yeah. Now it's consistent in his thought process because of the principles he's laid down, but it's wrong. Yeah. And this is effectively what a lot of naturalist, materialist type scientists do, which is that they try to look for only naturalist explanations. And if you do that, then obviously the only explanation that you have is that, well, life, probably evolved or, changed over a period of time. This is what they would explain. In the same way, and what really kills it is how many scientists, atheists, believe in what they term abiogenesis. Yeah, you know what abiogenesis?
I don't know what that is.
Abiogenesis means life from life. Abiogenesis means life from lifelessness. Yeah. So how many atheists believe in abiogenesis, that life ultimately resulted from lifelessness? Every single one.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is impossible, though.
Well, not only is it impossible, forget about that. Just from their point of view, scientifically, there is no evidence.
Right.
The only evidence that we have is biogenesis. We have billions upon billions of examples of biogenesis. Yeah, plants, trees, cats, dogs, human beings. Life arose from other things that are living.
I heard they're conducting experiments and trying to make that possible. Have you heard this?
Yeah, they've done various experiments to try to explain it, and it indicates something that if you have to have a laboratory, you have to have millions upon millions of pounds, you have to have the best scientists to try to design how to create life from lifelessness. It sort of indicates that actually maybe this is not something at random chance. Yeah, but irrespective of the results of the experiments that they're doing, none of the experiments have proven life from lifelessness. It doesn't change the fact that they still believe it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Why? Because it's the only naturalist explanation. Yeah. So when you explain and say, look, if your only naturalistic explanation is to explain how life came about, you'd have to believe in abiogenesis. If evolution, you'd have to believe in some sort of evolution of life forms, or you'd have to believe, that aliens came and seeded the planet, or that Mars, there was a meteorite that hit the Mars, and there's a meteorite that broke off and then had bacteria on it, and it came to Earth and seeded the planet.
I would call that magic.
But yeah, I mean, so but anyway, so they explain all of these things.
Oh, Kalim has joined. Yeah,
so so the point being is that when you explain and say, okay, that's their premise, that's how they think, then I would explain to them that science itself is limited and inductive. Yeah. And then finally, that when we come to the belief in the Quran as the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's definitive. Yeah, and that definitiveness and the fact that we've already proven that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala exists allows us to realize that creation or the arising of human life, could be a supernatural cause. Yeah, there's a possibility there when you believe in a creator. And then the Quran says that actually this is what occurred for the human beings. So therefore we accept that. So one is to explain about the premise of thinking, the framework of thinking that they have.
I think
naturalism.
we need to look at the root, the foundation. So here it's naturalism that you have to focus on. Once you can crumble that and change their way of thinking perspective to explain why that is not obviously true or incoherent, then obviously that will open.
Agreed. So naturalism. Then the second thing is you've got to look at induction, isn't it, of science? That scientific thinking is inductive. Yeah. I'll give you an example of this. Yeah. One of the most popular medicines in the UK is aspirin 75 milligram. And what do we do with aspirin 75 milligram?
I'm not sure.
Okay then. You did computer science, isn't it?
I did web development.
Web development, computer science. So anyway, aspirin 75 thins out the blood. Yeah,
Right.
stops you from having a heart attack. Yeah, or stroke, or clots in the arteries. Yeah, and capillaries. They've been giving that for decades now. Yeah, for a long, long time. Aspirin 75
I think you
milligram.
did mention this before.
It was in the talk.
Right, okay.
But for the audience there, I don't know.
Oh, right, okay, yeah.
Because it's not been uploaded,
Yeah.
does it, the talk? No,
Yeah, I'm waiting for Callum to.
yeah, don't worry.
upload it, yeah.
Sure. So anyway, so 75 million. So as a result, you got tens of thousands, yeah, maybe even hundreds of thousands of, people. Well, actually, sometimes it's millions of people, but I'm talking about in terms of the sample size by which they investigated are in the thousands, yeah, tens of thousands. And they said it has an effect. Yeah, it's positive, it's beneficial. So anybody who's got diabetes, had a heart attack, had a stroke, they will take it. 75 milligrams. Yeah, it's beneficial. Then they did another experiment. They took another sample size. Yeah, and this time they had a different sample size, and it was slightly bigger as well. And then they found actually the harms outweigh the benefits. It's more harmful, and in fact, maybe the doctors should rechange the way they do it. So for decades and decades, the scientific, data suggested that actually, aspirin is good for you. Now they're saying,
but they'll say because we're more advanced now, so that's why.
That's fine, but it just shows you inductive nature. It wouldn't surprise me if a third, sample size is taken later on, and it says, actually, no, the benefit is greater than the harm.
It's like coffee as well. Sometimes they say is it good.
Yeah, that's right. So the point being is that you have a certain amount of data, a certain amount of experience, and then you try to generalize that, overall. And that's the problem of induction, is when you've got a certain amount and you try to generalize, because some data might come later on that you don't know of, which contradicts. So as an example of this is like the universe. How much of the universe can we see?
They say like 5%.
Yeah, 10%.
Oh,
Yeah, that's 10% of the seeable universe. There's actually another part of the universe which is so far apart now, that's expanded so far that light no longer reaches us, because the universe is expanding at a rate in which the light can no longer travel from the far reaches, and that's 100 times bigger than the universe we can see.
Wow.
Yeah, so it's crazy numbers. So 10% that we can see. So there's 90% of things that we can't see that could potentially radically change our understanding of science in regards to the universe. Yeah, if it's discovered. Same thing with fossil evidence. Fossil evidence. Most living things don't produce fossils. Yeah, So as a result, you've got potentially, I think it's 95% or 99% of all living creatures have not produced fossils. So we're talking about a very small, tiny sample size. Yeah. In order to make generalization. And that's the problem with induction. So when you've got if the Quran didn't say anything about the creation of Adam alayhi salam, it would probably be scientifically valid to accept that position. But because the Quran says it, and we know the Quran is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who knows and created all of the universe, then what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says supersedes our inductive thinking about the origins of life.
Of course, yes. Okay, we have another question here. Let's see. Abu Muhammad, what is I think we already dealt with why there can't be an infinite regress, so that really answers the question of eternal universe. Bro Nico, he is asking, what would you say is the greatest evidence of God in nature, and why would you say is that evidence subjective or objective?
Okay, so
he's talking more like the design argument, because I know this brother as well. He obviously likes to focus on the design aspects of nature, and he's more moved with that.
Is that I think sometimes sometimes what we have to do is we have to go into some technical points now with regards to belief in a creator, because people are bringing technical arguments. Yeah, so it's not the case that these things are necessary in order for a person to have surety in their belief. Yeah, because it's natural, it's automatic, it's intuitive and rational to look around you and think, actually, this is not going to come on its own. It's like, for example, if I had a painting and I turned around and I said, how do I know it's a painting? Yeah, you'd automatically know it's a painting. Yeah, if you had a picture of the Mona Lisa as an example, yeah, you'd automatically know that somebody must have painted it. Yeah, Now, what philosophy tries to do, it tries to start using complex terms and argumentation, and you could maybe argue, no, it doesn't have to, have a painter.
Yeah.
It could have evolved that way, or there's nothing necessary about it, or anything like that. Yeah, but so then you have to then oppose other arguments. So actually, the reason why it has to have a painter is because it's contingent. Yeah.
Right. Okay. That's the route that you would take.
Yeah, it's contingent. I.e., that just because you've got paint, you've got red paint, blue paint, yellow paint, doesn't mean you've got a painting.
Yeah.
Yeah, of a person. Yeah, it could be any type of person. Yeah, it could be any type of creature that could be on there. Why is it that one? Yeah, and it's not defined by its material. So the fact that you have paint and the fact that it's on a canvas doesn't therefore determine that it's going to be Mona Lisa. Yeah, so it must be something other than the Mona Lisa, other than other than the canvas, other than the paint and the materials that caused it to be, the painting of a woman. Yeah, in that particular case, I think she was wearing hijab anyway, so it's all right to look at it. But anyway, so going back to the point about what is the greatest evidence of God in nature?
Yeah.
In terms of the design argument.
Yes.
So I'm just saying is that, look, for most people, they can have surety in their faith just by observing the reality, the fact that we are conscious beings, as opposed to, why are we conscious when we're made up of things which are not conscious?
Right.
Yeah. What's caused that? Why is it that the earth seems to be so perfectly balanced in terms of life? We breathe out carbon dioxide, plants breathe it in and creates things, and then breathes out oxygen that we breathe in.
Sometimes them type of arguments, the design arguments, are more effective, I think, because that's what the Quran focuses on more as well. In nature, look into nature.
You say,
because when you obviously reflect in nature, you see you basically Allah's attributes are manifested, like the wisdom of Allah, the knowledge, intelligence.
Yeah, you see
design,
the beauty, isn't it? Yeah. I wouldn't necessarily say that the Quranic arguments are, the design arguments, because when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala points to certain things about their nature and about the fact that they, that ships floating upon water, the birds in the sky, these types of things, you can argue also that these are pointing towards the fact that they are limited, dependent creatures.
That's if you look
that
at
they are contingent.
Well, you're gonna have to look at it from. You're gonna have to start off with that perspective and then read that, because you're reading that into the. I mean, it's a reflection.
Yeah,
The Quran says reflect, so you can look at it that way.
Yeah.
But you can also look at it the other way, that
even
Allah's attributes, like the wisdom, like how it serves a function, and then what the benefits and things like that. I think that's how
I'd have to look at the particular verse and obviously the tafsir of those particular
verses. Because that's
verses.
Ibn Kathir on these. They look at it more that aspect. They've not looked at it.
There's good tafsir in I think it's Surah Ali Imran verse 190, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب. And if you read Ibn Kathir's tafsir upon that, so indeed in the creations of the heavens and the earth and the alternations of the night and the day, these are signs for people who are thinking of depth. Yeah, and Ibn Kathir in his tafsir explains the point about things are limited.
Oh, really?
Yeah, stars, planets, they require creation. In order to, they require something to create them. Yeah, in terms of that. And obviously in Surah Tur it mentions أَمْ خُلِقُوا مِنْ غَيْرِ شَيْءٍ أَمْ هُمُ الْخَالِقُونَ. Or do you think creation came out of nothing? Yeah? Or do you think you were the creators? Or do you think you created the heavens and the earth? بَلَا يُقِنُونَ. Nay, you have no firm certainty, yeah, upon that. So the verses of Quran, obviously what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala does within the Quran, though, which is so effective and striking when people read it, is the type of examples that it gives to the mind of the person. Yeah, it makes them both reflect on an intellectual level, but also hits them emotionally. Yeah, it makes them feel weak, limited, needy.
Right.
Yeah,
when like a spiritual type.
Yeah. So it just basically makes you, because obviously we believe that human beings have the fitra, the innate nature to want to worship something, and so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He talks about, resurrection, and He gives the analogy between dead earth, and the fact that this earth is dead. According to you, it's dead, but then rain comes, seeds it, and suddenly it sprouts. Into vegetation.
Then Allah will resurrect you as well.
Yeah, that's right. So it's like the analogy intellectually makes sense.
Yeah.
yeah, and also it's very visual, yeah, and it makes you therefore affects you on an emotional level as well. So when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about creation of the heavens and the earth and the alternations of night and day and different aspects of creation, it's making you really ponder and think. Yeah.
Right. Okay, Jazakallah khair. I don't think there's any more questions. Let's see.
I think we've been here for about an hour, haven't we?
Yeah, it's probably
It's an hour and 4 minutes.
yeah.
So I don't know if you've got final questions
I
or
don't
final
have any
comments,
questions.
final answers.
Not really, nothing really. Alhamdulillah, I think everything was explained very well.
Okay,
So,
alhamdulillah.
Does anyone want to ask any questions before we finish? I can't see. How many people?
What's that? 13 people.
Okay. Okay, this will be the last question. So, cause and effect is a process which requires it to be done within steps or time. Does that not mean Allah or the first cause is within time?
Alright, okay.
Yeah, I think you did answer this slightly as well about the cushion example.
That's an example, yeah. You know Abu Muhammad, he did a really good answer to this.
Yeah.
Did he?
In that debate, yeah, I like that part.
He did a little short presentation.
I think in that sense he destroyed me. Yeah,
it wasn't part of the debate, it was before that, it was a week earlier.
He used a cushion example.
Yeah, that's right. That's a classic example, isn't it? And the thing is that the idea is that to say causation is temporal means that it exists within time, i.e. the effect has to come after the cause. Yeah, there has to be the cause has to be temporarily before the effect. That's an assumption. Yeah, and there's various examples that we know of where we can say actually both the cause and the effect take place at the same time.
Ghazali gives some examples, doesn't he?
I can't remember.
Something about stirring.
Is it? Oh, as soon as you start to stir, the cause causes the effect of the movement, isn't it?
Yeah, at the same time.
At the same time, exactly. Or the ball on a cushion. As soon as you have the ball on the cushion, it causes the indentation. There's no time. It doesn't sit there and then sink down. Yeah, unless it's memory foam. I don't know. But if it's not memory foam, it automatically. So to assume that causation requires temporality, is an incorrect thing. The other thing also, which I think is important, is to really understand the nature of time as well. From our perspective, we'd say there's different ways of viewing time. Yeah, one way is just to quickly go through it. There's an objective view of time, relational view of time, idealistic view of time. Yeah.
I don't know these terms.
So objective view of time is like Newtonian time, which basically means that time always exists, has existed, always existed, and it goes from past to future in a way where you can't stop it. Yeah.
Wow, okay.
The relational view of time is a view that time only exists in the measurement of change. Yeah.
Right.
So if change doesn't occur, then time doesn't occur. Okay. It's like, for example, how do I know the time now? I can see the clock ticking. Yeah. There's change, isn't it? If I didn't have a clock, then how would I see the time? Or maybe I see the sunrise and the sunset. So there's change again. Yeah. Maybe I look at the phases of the moon. Yeah. Or the seasons. So you're constantly looking for change, isn't it? Yeah. When people get older, their bodies change. Yeah. So you measure things in relation to movement or change. Yeah. And the idealistic view of time is that time doesn't exist. It's just a mental construct. Yeah. Now generally we say that time exists as a relational. Yeah. And it also fits in with Einsteinian view of time as well. This idea that time increases based upon or decreases. You can have time dilation, decrease of time based upon the observer and based upon momentum as well, movement, change, any speed, through space, There's going into a bit of physics but in origin it's relational, this view of time, it's related to the individual, his movement, and the frame of reference as well. So we say time is relational, it's about change. When we talk about change, what are we talking about? What is changing?
What do you mean?
Limited things, isn't it?
Right. Okay.
It's only limited things. Yeah. So only limited things change. Yeah. Possible beings change, isn't it?
Right.
Because
what about things that don't change? Maybe
there's nothing that doesn't change.
Space. I don't know.
Even space changes, isn't it?
How does that change?
Because expanding.
But I heard. Yeah. It says okay. That's
it's expanding.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's one way of you could argue that it's changed.
So let's say a
The other-
multiverse, for example, and it's not expanding. I don't know. The space isn't changing. I don't know.
We'll get into that later.
Yeah.
But the point being is everything which is limited changes.
Okay.
Yeah. Or change, you could say, is a product of limited things. So you have to be limited in order for there to be change.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So it's limited, observable, dependent things. Yeah.
Mm.
That are the things that change. So therefore, time is a product of the universe
Right.
because it's a product of the limited things.
Right. And so obviously Allah doesn't change.
That's right. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not part of the universe.
Mm.
So therefore, we're not talking about. So when we talk about time, we're talking about human perspective of time within the universe and the confines of the universe.
Right.
Yeah, because that's how we understand change,
Mm.
and therefore time is within limited things. So when you say what came before time, what we're actually saying is what came before limited dependent things.
Right. Okay.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Before in the ontological sense.
But then, okay, that's another discussion because some say time is like even some Muslims hold the view time's always existed and it's not a creation. And the hadith that Allah is something time. Have you heard that?
Yeah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is time.
Yeah.
Do not curse time.
Yeah. Something
Yeah.
like that. We'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
Because now we're getting so many questions. Yeah.
All right. Okay then.
But we're gonna have to leave these questions for the next time.
Are you sure?
Inshallah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. We'll leave
what's
it.
the time on Maghrib times? Well, actually, not Maghrib. We've got
I think we got up to about
15 minutes.
10 minutes.
So we could. We've got like 3 questions here then.
Go on then.
What are the arguments against the multiverse theory?
Okay.
Right now, the effect is, I'm going to be late to work. The cause being this video, and the result being the sacking from my position. But Idris has asked the question: can you explain the theory of relativity that even a dummy can understand? I haven't come across an easy explanation to date.
Watch
Yeah.
it. Right. Okay. So what was the first question? What was it? Multiverse.
Yeah.
Okay. Right. So what I generally do is I say, okay, if you can have an infinite number of universes,
Doesn't make sense by definition.
it doesn't make sense. And the reason why it doesn't make sense is because what you're saying is, can you have an infinite sum of finite things?
Right.
Does that make
Okay,
sense?
yeah.
Yeah. Same thing with regards to the universe. Can the universe be infinite in time? Can it be infinite in space? What you're saying is that you can have an infinite number of finite things, or an infinite series, or countable infinite. Yeah. Now, people will say, "Well, yeah, but you've got this mathematician called Cantor, and he talked about infinite set theorem." Yeah. But mathematics is different. Mathematics operates according to axioms, unprovable assumptions. Yeah. And he's talking about using those
Who
assumptions.
comes up with them assumptions? Are they just self-evident? Are they, or do?
Some of them are self-evident, some of them can't be explained, some of them they're used to operate. Just as a point, there's a debate in amongst philosophy. Is mathematics something that exists in nature, or is it a mental construct?
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it's just like going into really deep discussions about what is maths, what is number, what is plus, what is minus, what is divide, and ultimately we say mathematics is or in my opinion, mathematics is a human construct. Yeah, so maybe numbers might exist. Yeah, you got 2 bananas or whatever it is. Yeah, but this concept of addition, subtraction, fractions, etc. These are constructs that we created. And what's really interesting is the constructs that human beings create, the mental constructs of mathematics, fit the universe.
Right.
Yeah, i.e., you require intelligence to understand mathematics, and that the universe operates according to the intelligence.
Okay.
And that's why they say, well, the universe, the fact that it operates according to mathematics is a proof of the existence of Creator, because it shouldn't have to. Yeah, it shouldn't. Why should the maths that we do here have the same results across the other part of the universe?
Yeah.
But it does. Yeah, there's consistency. The fact that we can, E equals mc squared, which is mathematics, we can use that equation anywhere in the universe.
Like,
So anyway, so what you can do in maths is built upon constructs, and therefore it doesn't necessarily mean that just because you can do it in maths, it has an ability to apply to reality. So I can say numbers go on forever, infinite, the infinite series of numbers. but can I count to infinity? So if I start off at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5,
Because you'll always be increasing.
you always land on a finite number,
Right,
isn't
yeah,
it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So even though you keep counting, you'll never go from finite to infinite.
Mm.
Yeah, because somebody said, well, you can do. They said, well, what was infinite minus 1? Was that a finite number?
Yes.
Yeah, so you can't get to
So what
infinity.
did David Hilbert? What did he say?
So David Hilbert is a famous mathematician. He did work on Cantor's set theorem, infinite set theorem, and he basically said that infinity is useful as an idea, but is not a legitimate basis for rational thought.
It's nowhere to be found in reality.
That's right. It's nowhere to be found in reality as well. So he mentioned this point, and so so that's first. So we've laid that point. The second thing is so can you have? So you can't count to infinity. You can't go from finite to infinite. But can you say, well, the universe was just always infinite? Yeah. There was always an infinite number of universes in this multiverse picture. Yeah. The problem with that argument is it breaks down logically. Yeah, and becomes into a contradiction, a paradox. So I'll give you an example of this, and I always give this example of the infinite number of marbles. Yeah. So you've got an infinite pile of marbles, and you cut them in half. How many marbles have you got in each half?
You should have infinite.
Right, because infinity plus infinity equals infinity. If it becomes limited, then limited plus limited will equal limited. Yeah. If I cut them in quarters, each quarter would have to have an infinite number of marbles. Yeah.
You divided it, and you can't divide infinity.
Well, yeah, you've got a problem with division of infinity as well, isn't it? Whenever you do it on your calculator, it puts error. But from a theoretical point of view, you're saying that every division or every fraction of infinite is infinite. Yeah?
Right, yeah.
Will result in infinite sum. But let's say you take 3 marbles out of this infinite pile. Yeah? Have you decreased the infinite pile?
Yes. No, obviously, by definition, you haven't really.
Yeah, because it's infinite.
But
yeah? So therefore, where
practically, though, reality, you would have.
So if you have decreased it, then it's no longer infinite.
Yeah.
It's finite. Yeah?
But if it is infinite, you haven't.
Yeah, that's right. So if it's infinite, you haven't. If it's infinite, then the question then becomes, where do those 3 marbles come from? If you've not decreased it from the pile.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. So there's a bit of that's one contradiction. The second is 3 is a proportion or a fraction of the overall whole. And we just said every fraction of infinite must always be infinite.
Right. Okay. So that's not.
But 3 is not infinite. It's a limited number, and everything's a proportion of that 3. You can add the 3 to make the overall. Yeah. So it's not. So that means that I know space and the universe is finite. How do I know that? It's because I can measure distance between myself and yourself.
Right.
If I can measure at 1 meter, I know that the rest of the universe is a fraction of that.
Right. So you see. Okay.
So if the distance between me and you is limited, yeah.
Then it'll always be.
Then the fraction is of the.
Well, you're going back to what you were saying before, that only 10% of the universe that we can observe.
Even if it's 10%.
I'm just saying. But then the 90% that's unobservable.
Yeah.
Maybe it might be something different.
Doesn't matter, because it's like I'm on
the limits of reason.
It's like I'm on an island, yeah.
Okay.
And I can't see the end of the ocean.
Right.
And I think, is the ocean limited or infinite? Yeah. So I then get a glass. I take a glass of water out of the ocean.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. I've not.
That's only if it's the same.
What?
Obviously, it's going to be the same.
Even if it's not. Again, if you're talking about something which is unlimited, infinite, then it's not going to be quantifiable.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
So it can't be quantified. So therefore, the distance between me and you is limited, and that's a proportion of the overall universe. If the proportion is limited, then the overall universe is limited. If that means that the number of universes, if there are more than one universe outside this universe, has to be limited, because you can't have an infinite number of universes, because that breaks down again, as we said, and gave the example of the marbles. So therefore, the number of universes would have to be limited. The number of events, which is what time is, a series of events, another way of looking at time, has to be limited, because the number of events would have to be limited. So
I hope that answered your question, and that was a great answer. Alhamdulillah. We had Brother Idris Stars.
I think it's close to Maghrib time.
Yeah.
I'm sure the brothers will probably want to pray as well.
Let me just see. Is Abu Muhammad still on there? How do I
Abu
check?
Muhammad Jazakallah khair for the video.
That was before though.
Oh, is
How
it?
do you check how many?
Oh, you can't check who's on
Yeah,
at
you're
the
gonna have to
moment.
say afterwards.
Yeah.
Abu Muhammad, are you there? Or have you disappeared? I think he's disappeared.
He's disappeared.
Alright. Wajid, brother Wajid, is he this? See, we've got another question here, but we're gonna have to leave that. Inshallah.
We'll leave it for next time, inshallah. Yeah.
But the next week, inshallah, we'll be doing about the Quran, the Word of God, and something like
Inshallah.
that.
If you're back,
Oh yeah, Saturday. We do
maybe.
something
Maybe, inshallah. Yeah. Cool. Okay, inshallah.
Oh wait, do more. Okay, Abu Muhammad is here. Do more of these live streams on the proof of the Quran. On contentions against Islam. We're gonna have to do another one about contentions against Islam as well, inshallah.
Yeah, that'd be good.
But next week, inshallah, we'll go into about is the Quran, the Word of God, and maybe I might offer some proofs as well. Inshallah.
Yeah. I'm trying to get Wahaj to come down. So hopefully he'll do free. Yeah, we'll do free of us. Yeah.
Great, inshallah. Yeah.
But yeah, okay, inshallah. Jazakallah khair to the brothers
for watching. And assalamu alaikum
Wa
wa
alaikum
rahmatullahi wa
assalam.
barakatuh.
I've got to learn how to finish. Oh, there we go.